I'm Edna Kane Williams with AARP. I'm Senior Vice President of Multicultural Leadership. And I'm joining today just to thank you for showing up and participating in this important roundtable. Congratulations to our partner NAACP for convening this group of women to talk about the impact that African American women can have on elections. We know that historically, when we show up, we make a difference. We are the largest African American women, Black women are the largest voting bloc in this country, and we have historically moved elections. We've seen it time and time again, and even most recently. We can make a difference. It's important that we convene and talk about the issues that are uppermost and crucial for our communities, so that in the post-election days, we can make sure that our issues stay on the agenda. We've got a lot of good work that still needs to be done, but I salute you, I congratulate you. I'm proud of all of us collectively because we're responding to the call. We are standing in line, we're mailing, we're driving, we're doing whatever we need to do to make sure that our voices are heard in this election. So AARP is a proud supporter and sponsor of NAACP and its activities. We want to make sure that voter engagement is high and everybody understands that their vote counts and that their vote will be protected. So have a fruitful session. I'm sorry I'm not there with you, but I know that you'll make good work and good use of this time in terms of really identifying what are our next steps. Where do we need to go from here to make sure that, again, the issues that matter the most to African American women and our communities and our families are accounted, heard, and addressed. Thank you so much. Godspeed.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Gina M. Stewart, Senior Pastor of Christ Missionary Baptist Church in Memphis, Tennessee, and a member of the National Board and the Chair of the Religious Affairs Committee for the NAACP. On behalf of the Chairman of the Board, Leon Russell, and our President and CEO, Derek Johnson, let me welcome and thank you for tuning in tonight for what we believe will be a compelling conversation with a diverse and impressive panel of Boomer, Gen X, and Millennial women in a significant roundtable discussion about a significant topic, the value of a Black woman's vote. Our moderator for this evening and for this discussion is 5-time Grammy Award winner, host of nationally syndicated morning show Get Up Mornings with Erica Campbell, and an acclaimed author. As both a soloist and part of the duo Mary Mary, Erica has gained countless awards and recognition. In 2019, she released her first book, More Than Pretty, doing the soul work that uncovers the true beauty, your true beauty. Campbell is married to Grammy Award-winning producer and pastor of California Worship Center, Warren Campbell II, and they have 3 children, Krista, Warren III, and Zaya. Erica can be found on social media at I Am Erica Campbell. Please welcome our moderator for this compelling discussion, Erica Campbell.
Hello. Thank you for that amazing introduction. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm excited about this conversation. Really excited about this conversation.
Thank you for consenting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have such a wide range of amazing women that are going to be with us today. And I want to properly introduce them all because this conversation is very, very necessary. So let's get to our first guest, which is Dr. Tiffany Lloyd, a professor of government at Tarrant County College in Fort Worth, Texas. She's also the host of Jesus and Justice with Dr. Tiff, rising star in the world of faith and politics. Then we have evangelist Marissa Farrell, who is a powerful preacher. If you follow her online, you've seen her messages and you know that she is a powerhouse. She's also the author of Delivered and Dysfunction, a 7-step guide to a better you. Evangelist Jacqueline Carr, that singing powerhouse, Grammy Award nominee, Dove Award winning independent recording artist with a bunch of number ones just at the young age of 21. So proud of the work she's doing. Honored to have her with us as well. well. Kiera Kiki Sheard from the legendary Clark family, Grammy Award-winning recording artist who has shared her expertise on so many shows like Sunday Best, and she has a sister mentorship program. She created a clothing line, 1160, that's also in Macy's. She has a new record. We just seen her tour the country virtually. I don't think anyone had ever done it before. The amazing Kiera Sheard is with us this morning. And then there is Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts, who is so phenomenal, such an amazing speaker and entrepreneur. We know her father, but we know her. We know her contribution to our culture, her shifting the culture, not just with her word, but as an entrepreneur. And we're honored to have her as well. Good morning, ladies.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Thank you for having me.
I'm honored to have you all. This conversation is so very necessary because we understand and know what women in this country have gone through. And I'm excited to be with the millennial panel because there's a different mindset that you have than generations before and the generations before, but we're all in this together. So we need to be speaking the same language. Dr. Tiffany, I will start with you. How do you feel like your voice should be illuminated in this voting climate?
Mhm. Well, that's a good question. Before when they freed the slaves, it's one thing about being Black, but it's another thing of being a woman. So we're a double minority, right?
Mhm.
So, when they had that 15th Amendment, when they said, when they freed the slaves and they allowed the Black men to vote, they put a semicolon originally and they said women, and then they X'd it out like a line item veto. And then it wasn't until 1920 that they allowed women to vote. And we know Ida B. Wells, the investigative reporter, was behind that. And so here's the thing, when they had the women's suffrage movement, we can go back to Abigail Adams when she told her husband, the president, Adams, she said, John, don't forget about the ladies. You
Yes.
think about Illinois, they had a male-only profession law. But even when they had the women's suffrage, they allowed Black women to go, but they told them you had to go in the back. And
Yes.
if we fast forward to 2020, we still see that right now, that they tell us we can have a seat, we'll have something for you, but we are still being pushed to the back. And I think now you're seeing these phenomenal Black women like we are and all across, that we're saying no more. You're not going to silence me. You're not going to push me to the back. We talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We're just trying to live. A Breonna Taylor, that's a right to privacy, a natural right, a right that is so fundamental that government cannot take away. So I'm driving while Black now. I can't sleep while Black. So I think that it's time for us to get from the back, and it's time for our voices to be heard at the front.
Wow. That was amazing and powerful. I want to move to Sarah. I really want to call you Dr. Sarah Roberts. That's
Oh, you better. Wow.
I feel it. In 2020, some would say things have changed a lot, but things have not changed a lot. We are at the forefront and somehow pushed to the side at the same time. What could you speak to the women of these young generation that needs to kind of take their place and not be pushed back by sexism and misogyny, basically?
We're not at the forefront in the areas where we are in the forefront because someone made space for us. We're at the forefront because someone decided that they were going to push through the crowd and insist on being on the forefront because there were a group of people who were not being represented in pivotal conversations. And I think that one of the things that we have to continue to empower, especially young voters or voters who feel a bit distanced from the issues, is to really make space for you to be represented in those rooms. And as we do that, I believe that we're going to be able to mobilize in a really incredible way. Women are so influential in that when you get the heart of a woman, you don't just get her heart, you get her community, you get her family, you get everything connected to her. When a woman is excited about something, everyone is going to know about it. And I think the more that we can become educated about what's on the docket for the election years, the more that we can become empowered to use our voices, that we will see those of us who feel sidelined or not seen in certain sectors will have to be seen because we've decided to make our way to the forefront.
Wow. That was amazing. Okay, now I want to move to Jacqueline. For a young girl who's grown up in church, there's this thing that we've dealt with being polite and being a lady. Where does the line get drawn between being a lady and using your voice and understanding that you have something to contribute to what's going on, not just waiting until someone says, okay, now it's Women's Day, you can speak? Because if it happens in church, it happens in our homes and it happens in our community. So how did you gain this power and authority that you have to feel so free to speak up in your own life and in the world, basically?
So for me, building myself, I understand who I am. I know who I am and I know who I'm not. And therefore, I encourage other women to do the same thing. You operate in another grace, another level when you have confidence. People can tell when you're confident when it comes to what you do and what it is you're standing for. And so even with everything that is going on, because sometimes people can take, you being laid back as weakness. But there comes a time where you have to say, no, I stand for what I believe. I know what I want. I know what I don't want. And we even have to bring that into this. Don't let people silence you because of their beliefs. And a lot of times they try to go off beliefs from 50 years ago. We are in 2020. Therefore, the more confidence you gain about yourself, and it's not arrogant. Some people would call it arrogant. I just know who I am. So translate that into your work and what you do. And again, don't allow people to predict your future or what it is you're supposed to do based off of what they believe.
Yes. Love that answer. Kiara, coming from a legendary family and finding your own voice and your own authority to become not only the singer, but this entrepreneur speaks a lot to women speaking up now when it comes to our vote. We know that they're very into Black women when it comes to selling things to us because we're the biggest consumers in this country, but we are not the biggest voters in this country. For the young girl that this is her first time voting, you shared something on another panel that we were on about going with your dad. Can you share a little bit about what that means to own your own voice? Because you're a substantial member of this legendary family. You're not just a niece, a daughter. So what does that mean to have that power and authority in 2020?
I think it has everything to do with making sure that you are demanding respect through your actions and not thinking that you inherit it. I think also making sure that you are respected because you're knowledgeable of something, and you're also kind of living through life and remaining a student at heart, making sure you are having the information so that you can educate those that you would be responsible for in the years to come and the generations to come. So it's not a matter of me just living off of who's done and what they've done before me, but it's now me making sure that my place is known. I'm making my mark in the world, if that makes sense. Yeah. And also considering how now I am able to have a voice, like my sisters have said, because of what someone else did for the generations that they never had even met. And I think that speaks to legacy. I think that speaks to strength. I think it speaks to, I'll say, queendom, if you allow me to say it that way. Yeah. And I think it again, like Jacqueline said, it is very necessary, and it's not a matter of arrogance, but it has everything to do with confidence. And as long as you let people speak for you, tell you where to sit and where to go, then they'll use that to their advantage, and you'll never find your place in the world. So I think it has a lot to do with just making sure, listen, I'm in the room and you're going to respect that I am in the room.
I love it. I love that. I love that. All right, Evangelist Marissa. And now it's on you. Okay, so there is a big divide, not only in our world, but in our church. What is the Christian vote? Implying that you vote this way, you're not Christian. If you vote that way, you are. This is a bipartisan conversation. So we know there's problems on both sides of the aisle. Everyone has the right to vote as they choose. For the young person who's watching, they're going, I know what he's doing, but he said he's a Christian. And these people said this and this. What would you say? How do you find your position and your voice when it comes to voting as a young believer in 2020?
That's a good question, Erica. I think that it is imperative that as young believers, we vote according to our policy as well as according to our prayer life, if that makes sense. I think that it is important that we know God enough to discern the times and discern the culture and discern the things that are going on in the world. And when we look at those things and we discern those things, I think that it will help us to discern policy. And so when we look at presidential elections specifically as we approach this particular election, and even when we look at our local elections, what we find is that often people get caught up on personality. And I think that it is important that we look at policy, because I think that policy reflects the character of an individual. And I think that when we start to look at character, that's when we are able to discern what it is that we believe that God wants, not only for our individual lives, but for, you know, this world. I think that as a leader, as an elder, a preacher, a pastor, as a Christian leader, we have a duty and a responsibility to be able to discern the times for the world. We are the voice, you know, of God in the earth. He's given to us the word for his kingdom, for this time, for this dispensation. And I think that when we start to look at individuals based on what they stand for, then we are able to make decisions. I think that one of the issues that we run into a lot, though, Erica, is that people get caught up on a few policies. You know, we get caught up on a few hangups. You know, there are some people right now who are trying to hold one candidate to something they said many, many years ago, and, you know, where do you stand now? But I think that we have to open our eyes and begin to look holistically at it. And then that way we can begin to look at the character of the individuals that stand behind the policies. Their voice and their heart for people and for this nation is often reflected in the decisions that they make and the things they stand for and back. And so I think that prayer as well as policy will help us to discern that.
Wow, you guys are some brilliant women, and I mean, all of your answers so robust and so full, and I think that our viewers are definitely gaining knowledge and information. Okay, so I want to go there a little bit. If God didn't give us a spirit of fear, then why would we vote or be a part of something based on what the devil could do if they get in office? Why would we succumb to the language that says, oh, you know, y'all don't be upset with me. The gays are going to get us if we don't vote this way. First of all, sin has always been here and it always will be. It's not that we give it a pass because we cannot legislate sin. And when you stand before God, we won't be there. And God won't say, whoo, I took care of that because they voted right. Right. So your Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit has to lead you in all your choices. But there are a lot of people who are conflicted on these issues of identity. Now, we know who God says we are, but there is a culture and a generation who does not have that information. And it's somehow made its way into the Black vote. What the Black mama, what the Black woman says is very valuable and necessary. And people feel validated when they hear our voices. What would you say to the young voter who did grow up in church, but they're conflicted in their identity and they're trying to find this place in where to vote and how to vote, where they won't feel like now we have to hang you on a cross because you struggle in this area, or this is, you know, how you identify? I'll leave that open for whoever wants to jump in, because I know that's a heavy one.
You know, I think it kind of goes back to what Marissa said about your prayer life. I think that you have to have a conviction about who you're voting for. And I think that growing up in church and having a relationship with God, as I know from my personal testimony, are two different things. And I think that as we come into having a relationship with God, that we receive clarity and vision on who we are supposed to be, not just in the world, but even when we go into that election box. And when we go into that election box, we have to be able to say, this is a reflection of my convictions. Now, my convictions and your convictions may not be the same thing, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, I'm living a spirit-led life, and my spirit has led me to make this decision. And I think that at the end of the day, just as much as it is private, what you do in the election box, your private prayer life ought to show up when you're making those decisions. And so I really think that we cannot underscore enough that, like, Jesus is not on the ballot. He's not running for office. Like, if that was our option, I think that we as believers would have a clear choice. But we do have this responsibility to kind of go with what our spirit, our life, our conviction is leading us to do, and giving space for people to do the same thing as well.
I love that. I love that. Kira, you were going to jump in?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to add to what Sarah said, of course, having that spiritual counsel along with our personal relationship. But I've been convicted to understand and learn that you're not selecting a pastor of the United States, you're
Right.
selecting a president of the United States. And so I think going even to, if you want to be biblical and keep it in perspective, the Bible says you have to become all things to all people. So in what way is the president that you're selecting doing the closest thing to that? And like Sarah said, of course, considering the convictions, they don't have to match necessarily. It's just we're selecting a president for the United States. Will they make good decisions for us as citizens of this country?
Yeah.
I think that's what should be considered. And also keeping in mind that it has everything to do with your civic duty. It's not you being a church member and,
Right.
and fulfilling your needs with what it takes to keep that ministry going. But this has everything to do with how you will dwell in the land of the United States of America. And then not just that, but if you consider and you want to have moments and remember what happened in the scriptures, there were still leaders that were reigning. God knew that there were leaders that didn't follow him, but he still had his promised people to follow certain instructions. So keep that in mind too.
Yeah.
I love that. Marissa, Evangelist Marissa.
1 second. I just love that entire conversation between Pastor Sarah and Kiki, because what it does is illuminate the fact that there is a distinct difference between our spirituality, the spiritual perspective, as well as our citizenship to this country, you know? And I think that the one thing that we can draw from what they both said is that conviction piece. That I think that when you take on your convictions, I think that your convictions must in fact match the character of Christ. If that's, you know, who we are, if we are centered around what believers feel, I think our convictions lead us back to specifically to the question of identity is the spirit of love. I think the core of Christianity is love. And I don't think that it is our duty and our responsibility to display anything other than love. I think that it is our job to do that. So when we come down to identity, you know, I've heard the arguments, I've seen the condemnation, but I believe that we shouldn't get hung up on policies that lend way to other people's decisions. I think our primary responsibility is to extend the love of Christ to all. He said one day everybody got to stand before God on their own, and we can't make those decisions for them. But I think that if we exemplify and if we vote for individuals who exemplify what remotely looks like, thank you, Kiara, the character of Christ, I think that helps to guide us and shape our mindset.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a government term called right to privacy, and right to privacy means the right to be left alone, and we can apply that to everyday life. Mind your own business. What you do in your house has nothing to do with me. And the thing about it is, I think there are so many people that you're so heavenly bound but no earthly good. You can quote scriptures sometimes that don't even match a situation. You know, I can talk about, well, what did Sarah do? Well, let me get my own self in order. And if we're all very honest on this panel and in the world, all of us got some skeletons in our closet. All of us. The only difference is they just maybe have the evidence on the outside, but I may not have it. But here's the thing: no matter what I got going on, or what somebody else got going on, God reigns on the just and the unjust. No matter how evil or how somebody's ways are, God still loves those individuals just as much as they love us. So it amazes me that we have people in this country where you want to be biblical on some things, but you want to give a pass on other things. So, you know, sit down. Just mind your business.
Sit down. Sit down.
I love it. I love it. Jacqueline, is this your first time voting?
This is my first time voting. Yes.
How exciting. Tell me how it feels, and are you taking people with you? Are there a community, a village of women that you're talking about it with? What has your process been in this voting year?
It feels good. First, I definitely encourage those who, as many as I can, to vote. But, you know, I also like to encourage just vote. We all want to make sure that, most importantly, that we don't allow these things and all of that to divide us, especially as the body of Christ. But again, that we continue to go out, because when we're together, we see that some amazing things can happen. And so when we all go out and vote, some positive changes can definitely happen. Vote, and again, don't allow it to divide us. We see so much of that going on, and we mentioned the word many times before on this line, love. We can't criticize somebody because of what is nobody's business, or who you vote for or who they vote for. And let's all just vote and get out there and do what we're supposed to do and stand together, because we make a positive change when we do.
Yes. What I do know is that we have to vote up and down the ballot. And while we're talking about the presidential seat, there are a bunch of other seats that I think weigh heavily on what we see in our neighborhoods, what we see, everything from the type of funding that our schools get, to the type of grocery stores, to whether or not you have clean streets. And there's some people who do feel helpless, and they are new to this. Whichever one of you ladies want to jump in, but there's a need for us to get this message to our younger women who are just turning 18 and 19, who, maybe they did just get out of high school. Maybe they're not in a financially stable situation, and they need to understand that a lot of times how they vote will determine what comes to their city, how much funding they have, how much say they have, because they really have so much. And not only do we vote now, but we have to vote all throughout the year. Dr. Tiffany, would you jump in just in helping our younger sisters, who I'm hoping that are on today, realize the power that they have and that they can use their voices?
Listen, y'all can just call me Tiffany. I'm not big on titles at all. So y'all, my sister, just call me Tiffany. You call me Tiffany. Anyway, what I will say is, number one, my dears, there are too many people that are counting on you not to vote. There are too many people who have sacrificed their lives for us to have the right to vote. So democracy is our responsibility. This is not just about who's going in the White House. This is about what could happen at your house, your Social Security, your Medicaid, your Medicare, your disability, your veterans benefits. All of the above could be could be in limbo right now, depending on who we put in office. Your state and local elections are just as important as the federal elections with the president. So the thing about it is, Shirley Chisholm, the first Black woman in Congress, she ran for president. You know what she said? She said, I already know that I was going to lose. She said, but I ran so nobody could tell me that I can't run. She said, I'm unbought and I'm unbossed. And so we have the power. Listen, Black women have the highest amount of PhDs. We have the highest amount of high school diplomas, associate degrees, bachelor's degrees. Who takes care of the household most time? It's a Black woman. Who has the most percentages of the church? It's a Black woman. Who holds everything together when things fall apart? It's a Black woman. Who sent the astronaut in space? It was Black women. They were hidden figures. Who was the one that made our perms go natural? It was Madam C.J. Walker, a Black woman. So it's your responsibility to vote, because trust me, there are people that don't look like us that are waiting for us not to vote.
Ooh, you need an offering?
That's it.
Oh, I just feel like preaching with all this anointing on this panel.
Listen, she's talking that talk. Let me tell you why this is so dope, because most people think we're only concerned about our hips, our eyes, and our thighs, and our men, and our children, and what we want. But the fact that you guys are all here because you care not only about you, but the community around you, shows that Black women care, that Black women are necessary, and our vote is valuable. So let's keep it pushing. Let's keep it pushing. How do we, as we rise and as we use our voices, make sure that our men in this world, in this culture, also are elevated? Because I truly believe that there's an attack on the Black man with all of my heart. Listen, I have a beautiful Black man. There is not a time when we drive through a very nice neighborhood and we do not at least take a deep breath, because I know how they're going to look at a Black man in a nice car. Right? We got pulled over because we were in the car like churching, and they pulled over just to ask us what we were doing. They are under attack. How do we make sure that we elevate them, that we protect them, and as we rise, we don't push them to the side. There's been a lot of talk about submission and what that word means in today's culture. And a lot of people are kind of confused on the issue, but I don't want to rise without our brothers rising as well. Sarah, would you like to speak to that?
You know, to Dr. Tiffany's point, when the world was shifting in all of these different facets, it was a Black woman who was responsible for propelling us into those next dimensions. I think that as we recognize the suffering of Black men, and as we become more educated and more empowered, that we have an opportunity to make sure that we don't propel alone. My sons are both turning 18. They're turning 18 this month. They'll be eligible to vote for the first time this election. And so I am making sure that they recognize today's the last day to register to vote in California. I'm making sure that we sit down as a family and go through the ballot so that we understand what's on the ticket. I think that as we rise, much like she said, when Black women influence their communities, Black men are a part of those communities. And I think to really recognize what they're up against, to be sensitive to how the world views them, but to then also offer them another perspective is so important. Empowering them as we have been empowered is the only way we're going to see our communities rise. To see the Black woman come up is powerful, but we want to have counterparts. We want to have men who are just as educated, just as resourceful as we are becoming. And I think that we may have to be willing to pause for a minute, to throw them a bone, to say this is where we're headed, so that they can continue to grow and elevate with us as well.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Anyone else want to jump in on the subject of elevating our brothers and supporting and lifting them? Because they need cheerleaders too. They need supporters too. You know, if you're married, you understand that your husband always needs a soft place to land because the world is very mean and very callous. And so men having a safe place, even in our life, if it's not your husband, if it's your brother or your cousin or, you know, your play brother, whatever, they need to have a safe place to land where we can talk and strategize together about how to elevate. Would anybody? Yes, Sarah.
I do. I just want to add that as much as they need cheerleaders, like Black women need cheerleaders too. And I think that when we recognize the reciprocity in that relationship, because Black women have covered Black men for a very long time, but I think that as we continue to mobilize and are empowered, that we want to feel like Black men are empowering us as well. That's why I love my husband so much, because he created an environment for me to grow, bloom, and to flourish. And I think that Black men have to offer Black women the same so that we can have harmony within our communities and continue to see our families elevated.
Absolutely.
I just love that she brought out what is the key word to me, education. And I believe that education is a sure vehicle to upper mobility. I went to HBCU and for undergrad, and one of the comments we often heard from all of our professors, all 4 years in school, is, you know, it is said that if you want to keep something from Black people, put it in a book. You know, the Bible tells us that my people perish for a lack of knowledge. I think education is key. And even if not formal education, I believe that it is our job as the church. I believe that it is our job, even as African-American people, to educate. And I think that one of the messages that I want to send to Black men, as well as Black women, and as well as first-time voters, is to educate yourself. You know, I think that it is important to understand that there are a lot of millennials out there, both male and female, who do not even understand the full process of a presidential election. One thing for certain, two things for sure, is the president is not the only seat that is up. There are a total of 470 seats that are up for election this year, 35 in the Senate and 435 in the House. I think that it is imperative that we self-educate, you know, as resourceful as we are to use Google. I think just do a quick check, you know, what are the policies? Where do they stand? Where does the two candidates stand, one against the other, on different issues? And so I think that we also have to take a self-motivated step to educate ourselves. You know, if you're a first-time voter, please take the 2 seconds to look on your phone and say, hey, what actually is going on this year? I remember being like 18, 19, my first vote. For me, it was like, I'm voting Obama because I'm Black. So I'm just gonna vote Obama. But this year, we ain't got a Black man on the ticket. I had to sit and really through watching the debates. I had to go through watching everything. You know, I had to like literally start to put myself in it. And, you know, now at 31, this is really the time where I started to self-educate on the full process of an election year. You know, just like we haven't even really stopped to think about the reality behind the fact that our current sitting president called for the census to be ended, 15 days prior to supposed being ended. When you look at it, the census affects the electoral college. Last election, Hillary Clinton won our popular vote, but Donald Trump won the electoral college. All these things come into play, and I think that it is just important that we take the time to self-educate and to find out what actually is going on in our country. It's very important.
I think too, we as a community should also, I agree with all that you all are saying. And just to add to that, I think that we should hold our Black men accountable, but speaking to the elevation, don't be afraid or intimidated with calling them kings. Like, give them the respect that they deserve, especially if they're making their presence known and they are beating the odds. Let's reward them for that, because if we know how some are coming from different homes, we should consider, oh, you made it thus far and you push past this. We should celebrate them for that. And I'm gonna try to say this the right way, but if we look at other communities, it's so much that some of their men do. I'm sorry to do it like this, but it's so much that some of their men do, but they're still successful. But we, on the other hand, are ready to point the finger and say, you did this, you did that. Hold them accountable, but how can we get them back to the winning circle? And I think that we as a community to do that overall. I think it has everything to do with what Sarah said concerning the reciprocity of it all. But I think just celebrating one another and not using social media to such an advantage for us to tear each other down, more so building each other up. And I think we all have had the same experience in our homes when it comes to our siblings. I can say what I need to say to my sibling, but you can't. We're going to go on over here in the corner. And if I disagree, I'm not going to disagree with you publicly. I'm going to go over here and correct you like I need to. So I think if we're calling ourselves a community and being proud of where we come from, if we're saying we're the promised people, because I know it's some woke folk that are watching and we say we're the promise, if we think that we are that, then we have to act as if we are going for a promise. And I think that has everything to do with royalty. When it's a line of royalty, it's a certain way we protect each other. Whereas if we come from dysfunction, we move off of what we've learned in that dysfunctional place. So even learning the psychology of who's in our village, who's in our homes, and making sure, okay, if the father is not there for this Black man, then I need to create a village for this Black man that I'm raising, and consider that I'm not just raising a Black man, but there's a nation that is in this Black man. So I think that those are other ways to elevate them, because then we elevate their way of thinking. It's not just the block, it's the world. This is global. It's not just logo, it's the world. So I think those are things that we can make some adjustments with elevating the Black man.
I love it. Here's what I think about healing, and God's design of our human body was so impeccable and so incredible. If I get a sore on my arm and there's a cut here, blood from all of my body rushes to this cut position to bring healing, to bring the healthy blood cells. As it is exposed, the body, it becomes exposed from a cut. Unfortunately, in our community, we don't rush to heal, we rush to expose in a different way. Look what they did. So if we change and we bring healing and accountability, I'm not saying, but bring accountability, then I think it changes everything. And I know a lot of people have said, as it relates to both of the candidates, you know, they feel like they're stuck. When you vote, you at least have the opportunity to hold the person that you voted for accountable, especially in our local and in our state elections. You can make the calls, you can write the letters, you can go and make your voice heard. And so as we hold each other accountable, because our nation is bleeding, we are bleeding as a culture. People, we're bleeding. And if the ones that are thinking right and that are healthy come to resuscitate and to heal and to bring accountability and to hold them up until they get it together, or show them how to get it together, get them in therapy until they get it together, whatever we need to do, I think we become better. Tiffany, you were talking earlier, and I know that unfortunately we are still dealing with some residual effects of slavery with how we think. There is a balance of powerful, strong woman, which also says you don't hurt. There is a narrative that is untrue that says if I'm standing here and I'm poised, that means I've never cried before. That makes me strong. I think there is a beauty in our strength and in our vulnerability. What are some things that we need to do as a culture to speak healing to our own sisters? Because I've seen the memes. If you come out of this pandemic without a business and without a this and this and this, then you wasted your time. Sometimes God wanted to give you some moments to rest. And so with this ever this ever-growing competition of being better. She lost weight, let me lose weight. Oh, look at their party, I want my party to be that way. How do we get out of competition and really into a healthy way of thinking? Because it's perfectly fine to take some time off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so powerful woman has also forced us into this false narrative of being more than we want to be and have to be, need to be at times.
Mm-hmm. Well, number one, let me say that as far as us as a race, I think that, and this may be unpopular, but I think it's fact that we as Black people have been conditioned to hate ourselves. And this goes back to over 400 years of slavery. Remember when they used to do the brown paper bag, when they used to do the brown paper bag test, that if you were lighter than the paper bag, you were in the house. And if you were darker, then you would have to be out in the field. But I have to be honest with you. This is a panel that is so refreshing because some of the people that have hurt me the most or hated on me the most have been people that look like me, women that have looked like me. And I think that we need to think about Deuteronomy when it says something like we are blessed in the city, we're blessed in the field. And that just simply means that wherever we go, that we're all blessed. See, there's a Sarah Jakes, there's a Kiara Shear, there's a Marissa, there's a Erica Campbell, there's a Jacqueline Carr, but there's room for all of us at the top. God hasn't forgotten about your address as well. And I think that when you have people that say, oh, well, look at Erica, she just made it for her husband. Sarah, that's TD Jakes, Kiara, she come from the Clark sisters and whatever. No, why can't it just be Sarah is a bad mama jamma on her own and that girl can preach? How about that? How about Kiara is a Hurricane Katrina category 5 on you that will make you run? How about Jacqueline Carr is Hurricane Katrina, Rita, and Gusta? How about just a Erica Campbell is just a tsunami? Why do we have to just put people lumped together? Why you just can't hate? Erica Campbell did a post the other day, and it was the funniest post that I have shared with everybody. She said, why don't, sis, instead of you just taking these pictures and doing your mouth like this and then wrapping it with Jesus, why don't you just say, sis, you just want everybody to say that you're cute? How about that?
Be honest.
Be honest.
Christianity has made us feel like that's sinful. Christianity has in some ways, and not just Christianity, not just, people say, oh, that's Kojic or that's Baptist. Overall, to diminish your beauty is to diminish your person, to diminish your life. And I think that it's happened in so many ways. I remember, a young girl growing up in church. I mean, many of y'all know you had to wear skirts down because you don't want nobody to look at you as sexual. I heard one woman said you can't wear your arm out.
Yeah.
Because this looked like a booty.
Well, I would have been put out,
Well, y'all know, listen,
I cannot.
But when you understand, when you get rid of all of the misconceptions, all of the ignorance, you can look at someone and celebrate them fully and completely. I say all the time, I don't have to be number one to feel good about my position in the music industry. Sometimes I'm number 5, and that is perfectly okay. Celebrating one another, where we win and how we elevate. Because sometimes you at the top, but you are still dealing with some things, and you need to be affirmed by your sisters, and you need to be celebrated, and you need the pom poms and the cheerleaders. Sometimes just because you're there doesn't mean I don't want to be here by myself. I need my sisters and people around me to lift me up so I can go, yes. Because if there's a space for me, there's a space for you too. Yes, Tiff, I see your hand.
I think that we also need to know is that we see people's glory, but we don't see people's story. We don't know the sweat and the tears and the prayers that people have gone through. You don't know what people have gone through. I will say this. This was a season where God pushed me to see who he really is. He literally put me in my own isolation with people where there was just nobody but me and God. God was tugging at me and saying, you know what? There are some people in your life that you need to let go. And sometimes the things that we are trying to hold on to, God is trying to tell us to let go. It's like a carton of milk. You didn't have an expiration date a long time ago. Even Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead. And when you don't bury dead stuff starts to stink, and then it starts to contaminate. And if you're not careful, you'll end up contaminating innocent people with your insecurities. So I think that sometimes we look at people with all their glitz and glam, but we don't even understand what this person has gone through. And you halt your blessings when you hate on people, when you're messy, when you're gossiping. I'm happy for all of y'all on this panel. And whether and me being happy for you is not contingent upon you clapping for me. Because see, that's conditional.
Exactly. Come on.
I'm secure with myself that even if you don't clap for me, even if you don't wish me well, I'm still going to root for you because my blessings don't come from you. You don't have a heaven or a hell to put me in.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, yes, Jacqueline. I
Can I
think
add, listen, I
go
just want to
ahead.
say, I just want to say I feel like I'm in church. But
I
let
know.
me I just want to add to that. That is so true, Tiffany, because I could just tell you a little bit of my story. When I first started out, of course, I started in this thing very young. And so you had the people who were like, oh, she's not qualified. She hadn't been through enough. She hadn't done this. She hadn't done that. And one thing God had to show me was your journey may not look like the next person's, but you better believe that whatever journey I have you on, you're going to win in it. And one thing I want people to understand is you cannot allow people to make you forget about the path that God have you on, because it can shift your focus for one, it can shift your confidence, and the enemy will use that as a distraction. And one thing you got to understand is that anytime he shifts your confidence, he knows that once he get into your spirit, that would then leads to you feeling as though you have to compete or compare. And I
Yeah.
tell people all the time, when you're confident in who you are, you don't feel the need to compete, neither to compare, because you know where God has you. And secondly, when you're confident, as you said, you may not get everybody saying you're doing a good job. God is doing amazing things through you. But as long as you know that for yourself, then you will continue to walk in the path that God has for you. You got to recognize the distractions, because the Bible says the thief cometh not but for to steal, to kill, and to destroy. It didn't say how he was going to come.
Right.
So the enemy has different tools, and you got to watch out for it and keep your confidence. Keep your confidence no matter what, and don't look for it in social media. Don't look for it in people. Stand firm on who you know God has called you to be, and ask God for that inner confidence so that you can continue to be who he has created you to be in an effective way.
Absolutely.
This has been an amazingly powerful conversation. I thank you all for being with us today. Thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom and your thoughts. Continue to do great things. Continue to encourage the people in your circle of influence to vote and make their voices heard. Thank you to the NAACP for having all of us. It is time to move to our next set of panelists, our seasoned political powerhouses that will join us up next. But thank you so much to all the ladies, to Tiffany and Marissa and Jacqueline and Kiera and Sarah. God bless you and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, ladies.
I love you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I want to encourage you that something has to break. God wouldn't bring us this far to leave us, and I believe it. He's so faithful. Oh, yeah. I feel it in this room. Holy Spirit, move. 'Cause when you have your way, something has to break. Tear down every lie. Set the wrong thing right. 'Cause when you have your way, something has to break. Something has to break. Right now in your name, something has to break. Something has to break. Right now in your name, something has to break. Oh, I believe you'll lead me to it. I believe you'll get me through it. I believe that you will do it right now. Something has to break. I believe you'll lead me through it. I believe you'll get me through it. I believe you will do it right now. Something has to break. I dare you to lift your hands wherever you are and just show a sign of surrender. Yes, I believe. Oh, I believe you're doing it right now.
it. And I hope that you would speak it with me and use the authority of power of life and death in your tongue. I dare you to use it right now. Because of Jesus Christ, we inherit a certain authority. And I hope that you would use the power that is invested in you and to speak over your life and to say that it's breaking right now. There are new things happening in my life. And say it's breaking. Yes, Lord. Say it's breaking. Oh, come on. Say it's breaking. Hey! Yeah! I believe Jesus. Yeah, 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 I believe. Oh God, you're faithful. Yes, you're wonderful, Jesus. Nothing will stop me. I come against every interruption, every distraction, every emotional response. Yes, you like it. When the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom, and I'm operating in it. There is liberty, and I'm operating in it. Yes, Lord. I believe. Yeah. Something has to break. What a mighty God you are. I speak victory over my life, Jesus. Something has to break in my relationship with my children in school. Whether it be on your job, I speak increase. It won't be like this for too long. But you gotta believe it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I speak rest in this room. I speak healing in this room. Yes. Put your faith to it right now. Put your faith to it right now. Hey. Something has to break. Something has to break. Something has to break. Something has to break. Yeah. Something has to break. It's gotta break right now.
Wow, I think we all love and enjoy the amazing Miss Kiera shared. I am honored to be here for this conversation, the value of the Black women's vote. This panel is absolutely amazing. Let's get right to it. I want to introduce everyone. We have Bishop Leah D. Daughtry, the nationally recognized organizer, activist, political strategist, and author, and faith leader. We also have the Reverend Dr. Regina Lynn Thomas with us today. She serves as the executive minister of Grant Chapel AME Church in Trenton, New Jersey. And then we have Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner. She's the CEO and founder of the Skinner Leadership Institute and co-convener of the National African American Clergy Network. Welcome, and then welcome, ladies.
Welcome. Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so honored to be with you, educated political powerhouses who have been making change, who are showing us younger women the way. We are following and we are listening. I'm ready to dive in this conversation. Let's talk to Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, if you would mind jumping in and just talk about the power of our voice in this election.
Well, Black women are the essential difference between winning and losing. We are the powerhouses at the vote. We are, however, losing our businesses. We have been affected by COVID. We are the ones, many of us, having to leave the workplace to take care of children because of the daycare crisis. So while we're essential to moving ahead to a better America, we're in crisis ourselves.
Yes.
So our vote is critical right now. Leadership is the essence. We have leadership that has kicked Black women to the back of the bus,
yes,
let alone in the back of the kitchen. And so if we don't vote for that leadership, we'll continue to see ourselves going backward and more and more. This election is not just essential, it's life and death for families and for Black people. And that's not hysteria, that's the fact.
Wow. Wow. I'd also like to ask you, if once the election happens, will the COVID conversation shift? Do you think there will be a change? Where do you think we will go after that? Because the election is only 2 weeks away. Well,
assuming, it was 15 days right now.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming we have new leadership in the White House, we have the possibility of a vaccine without us being the syphilis trial group, a safe vaccine that the scientists say is safe. Okay.
Oh.
We have that possibility. We have the possibility of getting health care, not just for the 23 million, but increasing the affordable health care for Black women. We have the ability to work on jobs for women. So we're not the essential workers who are essentially taking all of the risk for the COVID. So in other words, when Black women come up, the whole race comes up and the whole nation comes up. That's what's at stake right now.
Bishop Leah Daughtry is with us. I see that you have your social media handle there as well. How can we bridge the gap between the younger generation who they're vocal, but I don't know that they're voting?
You know, it's first of all, Erica, it's always good to be with you and with my clergy colleagues here. You know, the generation gap in voting is not something new. It's something that has existed and exists through every generation. And so we've all, in every single cycle, have to do a good job, a better job of connecting with our young people and making the political process real for them. A lot of it, I think, is that younger generations, I'm talking about whether it's the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, every single generation has this problem. And I think it's a matter of them feeling connected to the process and understanding the impact, the very real impact that it has on their lives. And part of that, I think, is that we spend a lot of time talking about the presidency.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's the down ballot races that have the most direct impact often on someone's lives. There's a saying that the lower on the ballot, the closer to the people's lives.
Wow.
So when you think about city council and what day your trash is going to get picked up, if trash is going to get picked up, what are the books your children are reading in school? What kind of taxes are you paying? Those things are decided in local elections, and that's probably the best entry point for new generations to really understand the direct connection of their vote to the impact on the everyday things that happen in their lives, down to where the stoplights go. And then you can, ratchet that up to the presidency. But I think people feel disconnected, and we have to do a better job in every generation of helping people understand how the process impacts them.
Yeah. Reverend Dr. Regina Lynn Thomas, my heart is broken because I just don't think we should be at this place in our country just over the fact of us saying that we matter. Why is it such a problem just to say we matter?
You know, Erica, that's a question that I ask myself often, every day. Matter of fact, I ask God on a regular basis, why do people get upset when I say Black Lives Matter? Believe it or not, he has not given me answers, but he's given me patience to endure until hope comes. I think we are not the first generation to have to go through. I think those that came before us was told to know, whether it was Harriet Tubman or Fannie Lou Hamer. And so particularly as Black women, I think we have to continue to lean on the presence of who God is and continue to move forward in hope. Because without that hope, then there can be nothing else. And so I think we bring in all of our children. We continue to educate. We continue to be the comforters that we are. We continue to be the mentors that we are, the educators and the like. And then soon, and very soon, God will give us an answer. And as he said, biblically, he will free us.
I love it. I love it. For the women who maybe you've been in an uncomfortable situation and your voice has been muffled even in your own house, how does that woman find her voice in today's climate, in today's culture? Because while we are elevating Black women, and there are a lot of panels and a lot of conversations, if it doesn't exist in your home, it's hard to believe that your voice matters. This even is true for younger people who are not in an ideal situation. We know that during COVID, domestic abuse has gone up, people's problems, pedophilia has gone up. What do we say to let them see, if they happen to be on today, that they can use their voice and that they matter and that they're valuable, and we need their vote too? Whichever one wants to jump in.
In addition to all of the issues that my colleagues have put out, I think we have to continue to, one, be counted in census so that there are continuing funding and sort of for safe houses, there are continuing funding for assistance and help. But I think as faith leaders, we must, in this time, in these pandemics, we must continue to reach out to our congregations, because we are not confounded by the four walls of what we believe is the church. And so we have to continue to reach out to them and provide the help and the safety, but more so tell them, in order to continue to get help, that they must vote, so that there are services available that we can continue to forward to you. There are funding available. As Bishop Daughtry said, it's just not the presidency, it's the down ballot elections. And when we finish in November, we must be prepared for 2 years, because Congress is up and other state legislators, New Jersey and Virginia, gubernatorial elections are up next year. And so we must continue and not just stop every 4 years, but continue to tell those that are going through the help's on the way. But in order to seek that help, they must reach and meet us halfway by going out and voting.
I think, as Bishop Daughtry has said so well, that there has to be a clear connection between that woman's pain and understanding leadership that even matters, that even cares about it. And I think she said it so well. Nobody cares about you unless you care about making the connection. Your voice, your vote is your voice. If you don't use that, I don't care if I'm one woman facing domestic violence, I've got to find a hotline, but I need somebody to find the hotline. I need leaders who matter about suicide hotline or hotlines for young girls who are being trafficked. In other words, leadership casts a long shadow. These past 4 years have taught us one thing: the difference between compassion and lack of it, or cruelty, gives you either caged brown children or Black kids that nobody gets a tablet to make sure that when the schools are not in, somebody's checking their homework, making sure they're tied in even virtually to school or not.
Yes.
Leadership is everything. And the women must understand you have power.
Yes.
And we want you to use it.
Yes.
To help women who are in struggle. A lot of people are desperate right now and depressed because they believe they're alone. And I think we're saying today, as Reverend Dr. Regina said so well, you are not alone. We care about you. God cares about you. You can call out right now and there'll be somebody on the line. One of us will stay on the line and pray with that woman. Okay. So she is not alone, and we want her to know that. We love her and we care about her. She's not by herself.
I love it. I love it. Bishop Leah, we had a younger panel on just a little bit earlier, and I love that they were speaking some of the same sentiments about using our voices and understanding our power and voting up and down the ballot, and not just the White House, but in our local elections and what happens in our schools and even the type of grocery stores that we have. Just please share with the younger woman who needs to vote. What does she need to hear and understand about the value of her voice? We've heard it many times. If your vote wasn't valuable, they wouldn't be trying to suppress it. Listen, I was purged. I actually had to re-register. Me and my husband went looking for our polling place, and we were nowhere. They said, "You're not registered." I'm going, this is crazy. So I was purged from the ballot. For the young woman who doesn't understand that, that's why they're trying to take your voice and your vote, because it means so much and it has so much power, not for you, but just for your community.
Mm-hmm. You've said it all right there, Erica. This is about your voice, your personhood, your own agency, and the value that you place on your own opinion. Just like I go on Instagram and I see all the sisters with these great photographs and selfies and, this way and that way, and the hair and the, everything is they snatched in the face and all of that. And why are you doing that? You're doing that because you want to put yourself out there. You want people to know who you are. You want people to know what your opinion is about things. We post about everything. Cardi B and Offset, and who had a good church service last night, and what the latest. We post about everything because we want to share our opinions, because we think our opinions matter. It's just another way for you to express your opinion in the public square and to say what matters to me. I care about this. I think about this. I care about where my children go to school. I care about whether there's fresh vegetables in the grocery. I care about whether I can get health care. And I want the world to know what I think. And so therefore, I'm going to vote.
Yes.
That's all it is. Your vote is your voice.
Yes.
It's the same as going on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and posting an opinion. You just posting your opinion in the voting booth.
I love that. I love that. So many of us are brokenhearted when we watch the news. You can be so confused watching the news. You turn to one channel, they say one thing, you say another channel, they say something else. How do we sort through the messages and the chaos and just the lies, basically? How do we sort through all these things that we're seeing? I think sometimes people just say, forget it, I'm gonna turn the TV off, which means sometimes you can be uninformed. Where can we find information? What do we look to be properly informed, to not just vote for the president, but up and down the ballot, and not be swayed by the distractions sometimes of news and media? When you see people saying, I'm supporting this and I'm holding my vote and I have this plan, and now we got a rapper on the back. Like, it's so much for people to be confused. How do we sort through and get to the truth?
I personally like Roland Martin because he is one of us. He's in the news. He's a professional. He gets it all. And then he has us on the show. Two is that there are only 3 or 4 news items every day. The rest is commentary. You need to get in that Bible, get God's opinion about justice and righteousness, and then compare what you're seeing with that. Some point you got to turn it off. Some of us are on a 25 days of a 40-day fast right now, myself, and 700 people have joined us at turnoutsunday.com, where they've got the Reverend Zena Pierre's incredible prayer guide with a scripture every day about empowering yourself, about your voice, about the enemy that you have under your footstool. I mean, we gotta hear other righteous voices, and that you listen to that. It will make you think you are nothing. You have nothing of value to give. Turn it on, find out what's going on in the world, and then check in with some Black news. And then after that, turn on Radio 1 or whatever. And then after that, go try God and find out what God is saying. Okay.
And let me add here, Erica.
Yes, please.
Find trusted news sources. There's a lot of people out there with an opinion. Here is where Google is your friend. If you have a commentator and you Google them and you can't find nothing more than a year old, no, that's not your source. You want to find somebody who has been doing this, who has been researching and studying, who ain't new to it. They true to it, like a Roland Martin, like a April Ryan, like a Yamiche Alcindor. You want to find someone who has spent their life, who has invested their time in researching these issues. Those are trusted sources, not on, y'all know what I mean. The people who just got here, they don't know what they're talking about, where they've been. We don't know. I could preach a whole sermon on Nehemiah and Sanballat. I'm not going to do that. But these people who just got here, I don't care if they're good at doing hair. I don't care if they're good at rapping. I don't care if they're the best nails technician on the block. That's not your source for hard news information.
Right. And as a labor leader, definitely AFT.org, American Federation of Teachers, CBTU, Coalition of Black Trade Unions, APRI, A. Philip Randolph Institute, NAN, National Action Network, NAACP, who is sponsoring this forum, the Rainbow Coalition. They are organizations that have been in our community, that have stood there with us from the very beginning. And I don't know why we would forsake them for other folks' opinion. And so look for those sources. And every now and then, young people ought to turn to their grandmama Nim.
I know
so that their grandmama Nim can tell them what they went through and how they got over. that there is hope, child. And the
Yeah.
reason that you're sitting here doing all of this is me and your grandmama, them aunties and aunties
Yes.
struggled that you could get here. So don't forget, child, where you have come for. And so you ain't got to look too far. Just call your grandmama them in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, or next door or in the same household with you, and you can get some real news. And you can get the fact that, you know, this ain't new. That we knew this was going to happen.
Yes.
So now let's put our faith in God, and let's put our feet in the streets, and let's continue to do what we've been doing for a long time, baby. And that's what
I love it. And I love at the bottom of the screen, you can go to iwillvote.com. You can visit NAACP.org. And there's so many organizations where the truth is there. And I love that you said that. And it's never to minimize anyone that's new to it. But if you don't have enough of the information, then your information is going to be skewed wrongly. And so you have to make sure I love conversations that are bridges from then and now, bridges to the young and the old, because we need your wisdom. We need your experience, because sometimes there can be something that we miss, because marketing is real. And sometimes they're marketing and pandering to a younger audience and leaving out a specific bit of truth that will really help you make an educated decision when it comes to voting. You guys are all very, very amazing women. And I believe we have a little more time. There is a line that has been drawn in the sand between Black and white America, between both sides of the aisle. We understand and know that. I mean, there are families that have been separated. I had a caller on my radio show that said she didn't know that her white grandfather was racist until Black Lives Matter was painted in front of the White House. And she said her heart was broken. What do you say to someone that their Christian brothers and sisters are now saying, you are not Christian if you don't vote this way? It's almost sinful to say that God needs a vote in order to say I can get into heaven or not. But what do you say? Bishop, let's start with you.
You know, this is a challenge that I think those of us who follow politics and have invested our lives here, always face this question. And what I try to say to people is, I don't do this, and I don't think any of us do this because we just love politics, because it makes our lives go. But I engage because I believe it is a mandate that is consistent with my Christian values. God has said that we are due, and he has promised us abundant, rich, fulfilling lives.
Yes.
So we can pray on it. We can have all-night prayer on Pentecostal. We love an all-night prayer.
Yes.
We can do all of that. Or we can pray with our feet.
Yes.
Which means put action to the prayer and use the systems that are in place, the systems that decide the kind of food we have, whether we have clean air, clean water, whether our children are safe, whether the schools are safe. Though there are governmental systems that decide that. And so I bring all of myself, and including my Holy Ghost, to say, I want the system to align with kingdom values, and I'm going to vote according to kingdom values. What does the word of God say about how we love and care for each other? And then which legislative policy and which candidate gets me closest? It's not going to be perfect because Jesus is not on the ballot.
Amen.
But Jesus's values are. So who aligns closest? Closest is not perfect because none of us are perfect. None of us align perfectly. But there are some candidate that is going to help me help my brother and sister to live the full and abundant life that God promised to us.
Yeah, and Jesus, nobody speaks for God. God speaks for God. So the idea that one party has a hold on two issues and that makes you righteous, but you can be unjust. You could avoid 2,000 verses of scriptures on God's concern for the poor. You will be judged one day for that. Okay. And then maybe the other party does need to get it right with God.
Yes.
Great injustice. So I think Bishop is right that you have to have your own counsel with God about, I can vote my convictions, my moral biblically based conviction, but I can vote for social justice at the same time.
Absolutely.
Nobody can tell me how to vote. I got to go in my closet and say, and I got to go research these candidates. Not what they say. The reason you want to vote for a district attorney is because you want to know who is going to let police off when they shoot us in the back and who's going to bring them to justice. You want to vote for school boards to make which kids are going to be able to get that tablet and that extra care and that tutoring in the rural area and the inner city area. In other words, we got to understand that we got to vote for our convictions, our core values, our moral values, but we can vote for justice at the same time. It's being an intelligent voter. That's what you are. Become an intelligent voter. Know who's on the ballot. Don't go by any, meeny, miny, mo. There's 7 judges. Vote for 5. You haven't, what do you do? All the women's names?
Right.
You gotta check out their record. It's all on Google. You can get it.
Absolutely.
And if I could just press a little further on what Barbara said, justice is a God value.
That's right.
It's not a separate thing. It is the same thing.
That's right.
So your moral convictions will lead you to the God of justice. Or they should.
They should.
I can't add more than my 2 sisters have said. I agree.
This is absolutely amazing. And I thank you all. I want to talk a bit about economics, because economics is on the ballot, what we get and funding that we get in our cities. If you had a dream, if you had a prayer for the economics in our urban cities, what would it be?
It would be a Marshall Plan. That's literally, we remade Europe after the war. We decided after COVID to put trillions, not billions, trillions into the hands of Americans who were immediately out of work earlier this same year. We have the money if we have the will. Reparations has got to come up on somebody's lips soon. 401 years is enough time to say, okay, we made America, now pay us. It's not a dirty word. It's time to do that. Nobody works for free.
Absolutely.
So the idea right now is that we need an urban Marshall Plan. It has to include entrepreneurship. That's what gets young people. Young people want to talk about small business development. Young women want to talk about that, as well as school, healthcare, and the like. But at some point, we got to talk about reparations.
Absolutely.
I think it's important. I served as Secretary of State of the great state of New Jersey from 2002 to 2006. And oftentimes we had to make decisions between 2 rights. And don't let it snow. And have to use the excess budget to make sure that I-95, New Jersey Turnpike, and the like was covered. And so that's the value of voting. Vote your conscience. Vote someone who, when it comes down to voting between a senior citizen and living their last days out and a young person who is just coming into the world trying to find their way, and there's only $1 to do it, you vote that person that has that value, that can take $1 and do what our grandmama and them do and make it spread. Don't go out the chitlins, just let's use them. And so I think the economics of this, the importance of this is still vote those persons that when the rubber meets the road will make the decision to do, as Barbara says, to make the decisions about the schools, to make the decisions about hospitals and healthcare, and the like. And I'm telling you, then that is it, because I found myself all too often for 4 years, at least 3 of the 4, making decisions between 2 rights. And because God pressed upon me, I had to first ask him. And then I had to sit down and negotiate way out of stuff. And so I had to negotiate with like-minded people in order to make a decision when move forward. Are those sensitive that, hold on. Let me paint this picture for you. These are real people out there.
Yes.
Newark is not the only place. Let me show you some poor white folk that's in rural America that is sitting in these farms in these cities. Everything cannot be painted by the negative that you perceive to be, in fact, in the city of Newark or the city of Camden or Atlantic City. And so That's the economics. The economics must be in a value of moving forward to look at the least of them and the multitudes at the same time.
Yes.
Last thing I would add, just that to put a little more on what Dr. Barbara and Dr. Regina has said, in any of the economic plans, we must consider technology.
Yes.
Absolutely.
The fact of the matter is that half of the world has no access to internet. Half of the world. So those of us who walk with phones, and we're part of the privileged few who can actually connect.
Right.
And what this pandemic has exposed is the inequities that exist in Black and brown communities, including in rural areas, where our children don't have the capacity to connect, and so therefore are disconnected from the educational system, which is going to leave them behind. Any economic justice must include equal access and equity to the technology systems that are going to make the world go in the future. If you don't have access, you could never catch up. If you don't know how to use the internet and you can't get online, you will never be part of the 21st century economy.
Wow.
And that's going to be a critical part to us having equity in our communities.
Wow. Oh, let me just take a deep breath and say thank you. It has been a privilege and an honor to sit and to moderate this panel. I feel empowered. I feel seen as you women have literally laid it on the line. Nobody should be confused after this conversation, whether it was the previous panel or this one. I honor you and I thank you all, Bishop Leah Daughtry, Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, and Reverend Dr. Regina Thomas. Thank you so much for your work, for what you do in politics and in the world of faith. We appreciate you greatly. And now I am turning it over to Dr. Gina Stewart, who will pray us out. And make sure that you are going to the NAACP.org to get all the information. Make sure you vote, be educated, and be a part of this process. This is crucial. We've never seen a time like this in our world, and we need everybody to be a part of this election. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you, Erica. Wow, what a great, rich, and engaging conversation. I tell you what, if I had not already voted, I'm so fired up, I would vote today. As soon as if the polls were open tonight, I would go and vote tonight. And so we say again, the power is in our vote. Thank you, Erica Campbell. Thank you, Dr. Tiffany Lloyd, Evangelist Jacqueline Carr, Reverend Marissa Farrell, Kiera Sheard, Sarah Jakes, Bishop Daughtry, Doctors Regina Thomas, and Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner. We are so glad that God has called you to the kingdom for such a time as this. Let me mention that you can check to see if you're registered to vote at iwillvote.com. iwillvote.com. Also, if you would like to volunteer as a phone banker, poll worker, you may go to NAACP.org. Make a plan to vote and write it down. We ask that you join the NAACP and win with 10 by encouraging 10 people, just 10 people in your circle. Encourage them to cast their ballot. If you decide to vote by ballot, you can drop your ballot in one of the designated boxes within your state and your county. When you vote, when you will vote, where you will vote, and how you will vote, by mail, by Dropbox, or safely in person. Making a plan increases the likelihood that you and your loved ones will actually cast their ballots. To find your polling location, you can also go to www.iwillvote.com. Well, we also want to thank Dr. Zena Pierre, and I'm inspired and invigorated and filled with hopes and dreams for the future. And with that hope, I invite you to join me for a closing prayer. Great God, we give you thanks for the work and witness of the NAACP in the unrelenting struggle for justice. For these panelists and for this roundtable discussion, we give you thanks. Thank you that you have not only given us a voice, but you've given us a vote. Send us forth in the power of the Spirit, who gave us the power to be witnesses, that same Spirit who will help us to change the world. We pray this in the name of the one who was on the side of the oppressed, and in the name of the one who gives us the audacity to hope. And in the name of the one that I pray to, his name is Jesus. We pray this for the sake of your kingdom and for the betterment and a changed world. Amen.